On behalf of Mike Swetnam, our CEO and chairman of our board of directors, and General Gray, our chairman of our board of regents, who's in attendance, I'd like to welcome each and every one of you. This is really going to be an interesting talk. It'd be easy to spend most of the time up here just talking about General Toolan's accomplishments, but all of you have his bio. I think one of the things that's most notable and most envious about him, he's commanded everything an infantry officer can from platoon up through division. And most importantly, he's got the 2nd Marine Division. And of course, they only put those who are available, such people as General Chesty Polar, General Al Gray, the 29th Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Jim Jones, the 32nd Commandant of the Marine Corps, of course, Major General John Toolan. Now, you were doing good to that last part. Let's sit down, let John talk.
That name in that context.
So with that, with my instructions on that, but there's many things that people say about General Toolan and when they talk, and warrior, combat leader, but I think the thing that I've most often heard to describe John Toolan is probably the highest compliment that one Marine can say about another Marine, and that he's a Marine's Marine. So with that, I give you a Marine's Marine.
There you go. Thank you very much. Well, what I'd like to do today is I have about 130 slides, and I was going to walk you through them. I really do have a lot of slides, but I'm not going to do that to you. What I really would like to do is I put together a film back in February, a month and a half ago, because I knew it would be important to come out and talk to people and let them know what was going on in Afghanistan, what we think we accomplished. And hopefully it's a balanced approach. So we put together this little film. It's about 12 and a half minutes. And what I'd like to do is show it and hopefully spur on some questions. And then I'll come up and talk about some of the challenges that I think we're going to face this next year. And then break. I understand there's beer here and soda and water and Coke and stuff like that for the young Marines. And then we can go to question and answer. If that's good, I'll go ahead and show the film. The person that's narrating the beginning is the governor of Nawa.
For 30 years, Afghanistan was deeply involved with the war, which is every household they lost their dears, and in every household they lost one or two part of their family, a member of their families, and they all got hurt badly. And this places was actually war zone, and this province, provincial province, was one of the war zones.
When we first came here, our mission was to take the Taliban and reduce the impact of the insurgency against the government of Afghanistan. We've taken the fight to the Taliban, and the Taliban no longer can really engage the coalition forces here in Helmand province.
The Taliban commander has been killed, and the rest of the Taliban have moved out to Yasuf Shai.
When we first pushed into Marja back in February 2010, it was almost like a ghost town, for lack of better words. When we showed up, we told the people we were coming, there was no one there. The bazaars were completely empty, no one was around. After a few weeks, the people started recognizing that the Marines were there. They would come out, they would greet us, they started opening themselves up, and eventually they started flooding in, performing their jobs within the bazaar. Almost a year later, almost to the date, it was actually a year and 2 months, I returned to Marja. This time I found that the bazaars were completely packed full of people, almost like a city back in the States. The greatest improvement I saw was there were solar panels lighting the entire bazaar. When we moved in there, it was, like I said, a ghost town. There was nothing. And then all of a sudden there's paved roads and solar panels, so at night they can safely walk around with lights all down the main bazaar, that was pretty amazing.
As you see right now today here, like more than 1,000 people are setting wooden reinforcements and resolving their problems with the government. This place has used to be the hub and the center for the terrorists, the drug narcotics center in Marja. But as of right now, today you don't even see the signs or effects of them here in Marja.
Because you all are setting your people free here.
Indeed, sir. We are together.
We are together.
You're helping us, we're helping you. Thank you.
Time when we pushed up just north of here for the PB, and it was just completely empty, nobody here at all, not a soul around.
And 2 weeks later, you pretty much got all this?
Yep. Everything you see.
I think the best way actually is to go down Highway 1 and see how the commercial trade has developed. It's really fantastic. So I think we have seen during the last year or so, and also during our tour, a decrease in kinetic activities. It's going better and better on the commercial side, and we see more and more capable and more popular governance within the city.
Now the mission is changing somewhat. The mission is changing from what was our responsibility as coalition forces to engage the Taliban to now ensuring that we're backing up the Afghan security forces, the Afghan National Army and the police, Civil Order Police, Border Patrol, National Directorate of Services, etc. And so now we're in that advisor trainer mode.
Been a rather significant shift for us in the sense that the ANA and the Afghan National Police have really matured greatly over the course of the past year.
But more importantly, what really hurts the enemy is when we have freedom of maneuver on the battlefield, and at any one moment they could look behind them and there's a platoon or a company of Marines just landed from our helicopters.
As you know, Taliban have had a large presence in Helmand for the past 8 years. I'm happy with the results that the Academy and the Marines are showing. I'm happy we have soldiers in different areas of Helmand who are trained by Marines.
215 Corps is the newest corps in the field. It's been built on operations. It's learned its skills alongside the British Army and the US Marine Corps, and it's now more than a match for the insurgents. Today's Afghan soldiers are learning the engineering skills, artillery skills, intelligence, medical and clerical skills that are going to sustain it into the future. We're teaching the Afghans to teach themselves, and they're already proving capable counterinsurgents. They are a welcome stop against the injustice and cruelty of the insurgents. They are the future.
The ability for what General Nicholson and then General Mills and now General Toolan to have established those relationships with each of their Afghan counterparts. Each of those relationships has sustained the transition from each of those 3 Marine RC commanders. And that gives the Afghans a sense of strength, knowing that that transition from one leader to another will endure, and that relationship that we've had with the Afghans has never wavered.
But in addition, we're still continuing with our efforts in governance and development. So, for example, as many know, we went up to Kajiki just a couple of months ago. Why did we go up there? Because Kajiki stands not only as a symbol of Jaroa primacy, but it also is a symbol of American ingenuity and development.
We needed to convince the citizens that there is some benefit to them siding with their government and allowing the government, quite frankly, to outreach to the citizens out in the districts.
In really bringing agribusiness to the forefront within Helmand province, making farming and farmers more business farmers than just subsistence farmers. That and really getting a good grip and a good handle on the southeast power supply system and the efforts that are going to take place to repair and upgrade the Kajiki Dam.
Just to give you an example of some of the things that we've been able to do since 2009, since the coalition forces and the U.S. surge began. I've told our Marines as they leave Helmand province and they go home after a rotation that not only have they contributed to the security and not only have they contributed to the advisor trainer role for the Afghan, but they've also transformed Helmand Province in other ways. For example, from a commercial perspective, we've built over 1,072 kilometers of roads. Those roads are going to tie together all the major districts in Helmand Province and allow the farmers to bring their produce to market. Instead of just subsistence and living off of it, they're now able to actually move that stuff around and sell it and make some money.
We found that whenever we make a gravel road, a simple gravel road, whether it be up 611 or up what we call Route Red, I guess you can say freedom of movement. The first word, freedom, is really what we're providing. It gives them the freedom to choose what they're doing, it gives them the freedom to choose the Jarrell versus the Taliban.
Afghans are innovative people. They can fix things, they can repair things, they can recover things. So a lot of things that we're teaching them, we're not trying to force feed the U.S. model on the Afghan model. Because these gentlemen, when you go out in town, they have repair shops, they have body shops, they know how to fix weapons, they can do what they need to do. And they rely on supplies coming up from Daresh and Lashkar to make that economic engine go. And this will help that effort. As we get more connected to Lashkar, this will help governance so that the provincial government can come up and actually do the things that are necessary to connect the people to their own government.
There has to be some alternatives to the growth of poppy. Poppy is something that is easy to grow, it requires very little maintenance, and it provides a lot of money. But that money doesn't go to the farmers, it doesn't go to the legitimate people, it goes to the land mafia, those that are more concerned about making money than they are about taking care of families.
But counter-narcotics has also been a big effort, and that's really been led by Governor Mangle, and he's made that a very strong theme to drive down the narcotics trade. So for a long time that was about giving out subsidised wheat seed, so farmers could grow wheat instead of poppy. And what we've seen in the last 3 years is a 40% reduction in poppy cultivation in Helmand. So in the last 12 months, really for the first time, we've tried to broaden that program to get into more high-value crops, alfalfa, winter vegetables, things like that. And I think we see that as the way forward.
So these roads offer an alternative for the farmers to grow something else and make a profit. It's going to take time, it's not going to happen overnight, but with the help of other nations, with the donations of other nations, with the technical know-how that's brought in through NGOs and IOs, we'll make a difference, but it's going to take time.
This is much more than a road. It's a symbol of creation. It's a symbol of the goods and services that can now flow in and out of Helmand Province. It's a symbol of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan's will to provide security here.
We've also made an investment in the future of Afghanistan. Today there's 133 schools. Today we've got over 1,600 teachers. I mean, that's a difference. And those teachers are coming here because they know that they can come down here and they can teach properly and they don't have to worry about threats to their life.
Almost 17 to 18 schools we have here, which are all active. It has teachers, students. The teachers on time are coming to their schools, and the students are attending their schools. Almost, as I mentioned before, 60 to 70% compared to the past education has been improved here.
So the mission continues to change and it continues to evolve, but we're putting more and more of the effort, more and more of the focus onto the Afghans, and we're stepping back and we're supporting it.
It's about 80, perhaps even 85% less violent than it was during these months last year, and that is tremendous progress. Perhaps the trump card in all of that is an ever-increasingly willful population in Nadali who are increasingly defining their vote against the insurgency and in favour of Afghan legitimacy. And we see hard evidence of that almost every day.
We sweep out all the areas, leading the ANA up to the rooms and allowing the ANA to actually push into the rooms so the locals can see that the ANA are up front and also doing all the searching, so that we're eventually going to just turn it over and the locals will have trust in the ANA.
It's very important for us to understand why we are here and what's the purpose. And we will accomplish our mission and we will stay here as long as it takes.
The threats are not completely gone, and the security's got to stay strong. And we've got to make sure the Afghan National Security Forces are resourced properly. That's a very important thing. But as long as they're resourced properly, the security will be maintained. The biggest threat that we have to the security forces is corruption. And as I said earlier, if we can offer alternative livelihoods to the Afghans, we'll cut through that corruption. And if we maintain the security like we have right now, we'll have a rule of law. We'll have prosecutors, attorneys, and judges that are willing to come down here into Helmand Province and establish rule of law. And so people that do turn towards corruption will be held accountable.
Because we trust each other, we are working together, and we have confidence in each other. That's why we brought this peace here.
That is the key. It is trust. Trust builds everything.
The point is that we've made a difference. We've taken Helmand Province from a very kinetic environment, a place where we've had significant fights, significant violence, significant battles against the Taliban. So today, where the number of kinetic activities is diminished, yet the activity and the improvement in governance and development is just skyrocketing. So the difference is very evident.
Well, I hope that that gave a little bit of a perspective of what's been accomplished in Helmand over 2011-2012. I just want to highlight this issue of corruption and be very straightforward. Corruption is what's going to dismantle everything that we built if we allow it to take root. And I think there's a couple of types of corruption. And one of them is what I'm referring to as parasitic corruption. As you know, parasites demand a weak host. That's how they survive. And I think that there are some parasitic leaders in the central government who will have a negative impact. They're negative influencers now, and we need to try and wean them, remove that influence away. Sher Mohammed Akhundzada is a big thorn in my side. He's been a thorn in Governor Mangal's side for several years. He's a senator and he's one of President Karzai's advisors. And his influence in Helmand Province, particularly in Upper Helmand River Valley, is huge. It's very difficult to try and work with the governor who's working hard, threats to his life every day, and he knows that every time he asks for something from the central government, Sher Mohammed Akhundzada is whispering in Karzai's ear saying, no, or don't trust him, or whatever. So and really a lot of this, particularly in SMA's case, a lot of it has to do with the drug trade. And the drug trade is something that, again, we will not be able to get a handle on the drug trade in Afghanistan. It wasn't our mission. It's not our mission. Interestingly enough, the UK has a little different perspective because politically, the UK used the drug trade and the effects that the heroin has in Europe is a lot more substantial than it is in the U.S. So that was used by the UK government as sort of a objective in going into Helmand Province. And it's a battle that's not going to be won very, very easily. It's going to be a real challenge. But that money is impacting on a lot of people in the central government, and so it's difficult sometimes to get the job done because that money is also fueling insurgency. The other kind of corruption, which I think is something that we could do something about, is what I refer to and others refer to as predatory corruption. And that is really the idea of the Afghan security forces abusing their power. And we all know the adage that, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And there is a history with the police force. And, they haven't really built that trust between them and the local population yet. I think there's potential there. It's certainly there, and we're on the right track. But we could talk about this later, but I don't think we're positioned well enough right now to be able to bring the police from where they are to where they need to be, because we don't have the expertise in theater. I didn't have the expertise in my force. I mean, I had military, I had guys in uniform dabbling in community policing, which really we weren't. What we really were teaching them was military operations. And we don't need the police to conduct paramilitary operations. We need the police to conduct community policing. So we need to bring the right people in there. And I hope that the summit in May, when in Chicago, one of the things that hopefully, that I suspect will be raised is the need for nations to pony up law enforcement professionals in a number that will make a difference. Because it is safe for the police to operate in Helmand Province. It wasn't safe 2 years ago, but it is now. And so that's what we need to capitalize on that. But that predatory corruption, the Afghan National Army has the respect of the local population. Got some good leaders in Helmand Province. The commander of 215th Corps, General Malouk, he's a solid individual. He's honest. He's got integrity. And his brigade commanders are pretty good as well. So we have the right team there to continue to build that support for the local population. The last thing I'll say, and then I'll open up the questions, is that when we first got there, particularly when General Mills got there, and really, you know, Larry Nicholson, when he got out there with 2nd MEB, it was, you know, game on, fight on. I think when General Mills arrived, it was still fight on, but they started cutting through some things and were able to make some inroads in 2010 to build the support of the local population. As I leave in March, I think we're the home team. The Taliban is no longer the home team now. The senior leadership in Quetta does not come into Helmand Province, and when they do, they sneak in. And when they sneak in, I know for a fact that they lose credibility with the local population. They're saying they're really not a factor. You know, they can bring some funds, and you know they would sneak in actually to try and quell riots going on among the Taliban at the mid-range level. That was the reason why they came in. So I think now we're the home team. We have the local national support. Taliban are out, and so they can't lead by proxy. And I think that's to our advantage, and we are capitalizing on it, and it's making a difference. So sorry, I don't know, do we want to just take a break and get a drink or something and then come back in Q&A, or is that? Whatever. Right?
No. They don't need a break. Let's continue mush on.
All right.
No breaks. If you really feel the need for a break, you can get up and go over and get a cup of coffee or soda or something. No discipline here, just loose attitude.
So you know, are there any questions? Sure.
General Arnold Christ from Sea Power Magazine. You mentioned the need to resource the Afghan security forces. That could become a problem down the line. You know, the way Congress is dealing with the budget issues. You know, there's a possibility of giving another Vietnam where we walk away and then Congress cuts the money from those the Vietnam security forces and the thing goes down the hill. How there's that. President Karzai has asked for $4 billion a year off on, and there's still concern as whether the NATO forces can come up with that. What's your view on that? And you're concerned that if the money isn't there, what happens to the ANA?
I remember in November we had a commander's call with General Allen in Kabul, and he mentioned to us the fact that the Afghan National Security Forces numbers would be cut significantly, from 352,000 to about 230,000. And, you know, really we were somewhat surprised, at least myself and other RC commanders were somewhat surprised by that. We didn't anticipate that large number, but of course we realized that, you know, the price tag associated with supporting and sustaining a force of 352,000 is relative to $12 billion project. I mean, that's really what we've been putting into Afghanistan. So, but General Allen said, look, you know, that 352,000 is a surge number. And just like we're recovering from the coalition forces surge of, when we went up to 110,000, and now we're going back down to 68. The same thing for the Afghan security forces is we need to now build into the plan to come down off of that from 352 to 228. We haven't really figured out exactly how that's going to be divided up between police and Army and Border Patrol and ANCOP and et cetera. But it's a factor that we have to deal with. And one of the things that we're concerned about as we go through that process is we could lose faith with the population. Particularly, I mean, if the way we came down off those numbers where we were to riff them, and just, okay, reduction in force down to, we'll have big problems. Because you know exactly where they'll go in order to get to feed their families. But I do think maybe there's a potential through attrition over the next 4 or 5 years to maybe come down off that number and get down to that manageable $4 billion a year project, or $4 billion a year plan. I can't really say whether or not $4 billion a year is sustainable. Certainly, one of the hardest jobs that General Allen has is trying to maintain the coalition. And there's people bailing. The French are out. And I don't know what this election, what it'll do even further. But so anyway, I think sustainment is also the biggest issue that the current RC commander in Southwest has, and that is, as we come down from 250 FOBs and PBs that we had in Helmand and Nimros province, we're coming down to 26 in September. 26 FOBs and PBs. And we're turning some stuff over to the Afghans, and the other things we're just closing. Because sustaining the Afghan forces, we can't leave generators, we can't leave those kinds of things. We sort of have to change, we've spoiled them. And we somehow have to need to change them a little bit. And that's going to be a challenge. And oh, by the way, that spoiling of the Afghans, we created it, I don't know. It's just no leverage anymore. We just don't have the leverage. And if we don't have that leverage, they say, "Hey, talk to the hand. I don't need to listen to you." And so there's a challenge there. How do you maintain leverage with the Afghan forces in order so that they do the things that we think they need to do and get to where they need to go? I remember going out to see the Danish battle group. To be honest, they weren't as aggressive as I needed them to be in Goresh, and we were building up operations in Goresh because, I can tell you the story, but suffice it to say that I think the criminal patronage networks did a pretty good job of cloaking what was really going on in Goresh, so that we were sort of suckered into fighting in surrounding districts in the province, but left Goresh alone because we didn't think there was any problems there. But the reality is Goresh was sort of the commercial hub for the criminal patronage networks with all the Hawalas and Hawaldas, and we're really funding the insurgency. But they said to the insurgents, hey, don't play in Goresh, don't bring your dirty laundry here to Goresh. Fight in Sangin, fight in Helmand, fight in Nawa, but not in Goresh. So we never went in there. Now we find out that it really is something we need to go after. But the Danish battle group initially was not very aggressive, and they owned the Goresh area. We were suckered in. So now we're going after it. And now Nawi Saranj, which Goresh is part of, is the most kinetic district in Afghanistan. So General Gurganis, who's over there now, has got a little bit of a challenge. But anyway, yes, you identified a serious problem. I can't. We'll see what happens in Chicago, and we'll see who comes up with the money. but it is expensive. Dan?
Well, thanks for continuing to serve, General Toolan. You've done a great job, and we're all proud of you. Talk about training young leaders, how distributed ops are going, and what that portends for the future.
And you're talking about our guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Young leaders, define it as you will.
What is your eyes? I mean, what can I tell you? I mean, what our guys are doing every day is just remarkable. Thank you.
Everybody help themselves.
Yeah. I think we're going to a different mission now. No, excuse me, we're not going to a different mission. We're going to a different method. Same mission. The mission's still coined, but we're changing the method. We're going as advisors and trainers. So there's a different mindset that we need to have. And you know, it's challenging to sort of build that mindset, particularly the guys who have deployed over there 2 or 3 or 4 times already. You know, in their mind, it's combat operations, it's get some, and you know, the Afghans will be behind you. Now, they're going to have to change their pace a little bit, and the Afghans got to do it, and they'll be backing them up. That's going to take a little bit of work, and I don't, you know, even though, you know, we think the Marines can do great things, it's a challenge for us, and so we got to train them right. But during my time in Afghanistan this past year, as you know, it's really been a company commander, in many cases, you know, a squad leader effort, and they understand how to interact with the Afghans. They understand, you know, what the Afghan local community is to them, and they've just done a great job. Distributed operations, I'm not sure that, you know, we have some of the best equipment that we, the Marine Corps, we've been wanting for nothing. I opened up the Marine Corps Expo at Camp Lejeune last week, and you know, what I said was that we're in pretty good shape. Although I was somewhat disappointed when I went to the hospital at Camp Leatherneck at Bastion, actually, and was going to see some British guys that got hit by IED, and I asked the nurse, I said, how are the guys doing? They said, well, they're doing okay. And she said, well, but you certainly can prove that they had their priorities in the right place. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, this guy had 2 sets of ballistic underwear on. And I said, ballistic underwear, what is that? Because we didn't have it. And I told the industry, I said, how is it that the UK understood that this was important because you're facing IEDs and we didn't have it? I made one phone call to the Commandant and I had 30,000 pair come in a couple of weeks later. But anyway, you know, they're well equipped, they got the right gear, they got the right mindset. I couldn't ask for a better group of guys. And, I mean, I could tell you other stories, but you know, on Friday I took the division on a run. So I had 8,000 guys out there. And the Commandant had come earlier, and he had talked to us about behavior. And he believes that, you know, there's a problem that we need to get at when, you know, Marines urinate on dead bodies. And regardless of the fact that, you know, that is such a small percentage, when you think about how many Marines have deployed in and out, and all the great stories, one story, as we know, wipes it away. So after the Commandant came and spoke to the leadership last Thursday, I had division on Friday, went on a 3-mile run, and it was dark on WPT field, and some guy comes hopping up to me and saw me and says, sir, the Lance Corporal wants to tell you something. And Lance Corporal Simmons says, hey, sir, I was with you in 2-9, and you know, just out of the hospital, got my prosthetics, I want to try them out on a run this morning. I said, roger that. 6 months between injury and running 3 miles. But, I mean, those are the kinds of guys we got. And I don't think I'm telling anybody, particularly any of the Marines here, anything you don't already know. But yes, I don't think the problem, you know, there are guys that are going to screw up, and we're dealing right now with that video, but they're just getting it done.
Well, I just want to follow up because I didn't mean to ask my question in a way that would make you answer about what a few knuckleheads have done to diminish the significant accomplishment, heroic accomplishment of thousands of people. I meant to ask my question in a way that will allow you to talk about the things that they've done in distributed ways where young men and women, yes, are doing horrific things with great judgment. And how do we take those skills now and apply it to the future? Because it's really where we wanted to go with that.
Thanks for trying to set me up and shape my answer.
I set the ambush, you walked into it. None of that at all,
No, I really think you said it. I mean, they're understanding exactly what they need to get done, and they're doing it. And as we move to the advisor trainer role, there'll be some adjustments. There'll be some learning. There's a little bit of impatience. Some of our guys who've been in combat 3-4 times, now they're going to go over there and sit back and say, hey, you guys need to do it this way. And so we're going to have to keep a close watch on that. But remember the story by General Zinni, who tells about when he first did his first advisor mission. It's pretty interesting. I think he told his story at the Marine Memorial a couple weeks ago. But bottom line is he told the story to say to the leaders, hey, make sure you send them over there prepared for that job because it's different. And I said, roger that. Sir.
You're training all these wonderful people and they lack great skills. What is the likelihood that sometime down the road they feel less loyalty to the national forces, rather go back to where their home is, where their family is, their culture, their ethics? So would that then reinforce the old tribal structure? Is there a risk for this?
Unfortunately, in the Afghan National Army, although we've worked hard trying to recruit Pashtuns to join the Army and be the leaders, the reality is most of the leadership is Tajik, Uzbek. It's mostly coming from the north and the west. I would say we have about 15% of the 215th Corps, which is the Corps in Helmand Province, is Pashtun. So the Army is a strong orientation back to the north and the west. The police, on the other hand, are strongly Pashtun. What's interesting about the Pashtun is they don't want to leave their village. They are very comfortable. And even when they join the police, and the odds of them being transferred from Nawa to Marja are very real, it's what they hesitate to join because they don't want to leave home. So they become ALP. But to answer your question, I don't think that there's always the risk of negative influencers impacting on the ANA or the AUP. But I have not seen any indications of that happening. There's also the fear of the insider threat of the ANA being infiltrated by Taliban and taking advantage of the relationship that they have with the coalition forces. In reality, when you look at the insider threat, and the media tries to attack that and raise the fear that the insider threat is greater than it is. I think we had 12 incidents of insider threat over the past 3 years. It's not been that great. While I was there, unfortunately, I had a lieutenant colonel and a sergeant killed by an ANCOP soldier who these guys were working, they were partnered with the ANCOP, they were sitting at a picnic table having dinner. This lieutenant from the ANCOP asked the question of the interpreter, hey, are they eating halal food? The guy said no. The guy disappeared, came back with his weapon and shot and killed 2 of my guys. That has a powerful impact. But when you look at it, it's isolated. He wasn't a Taliban insert. He wasn't infiltrated. He didn't infiltrate it. He was just an individual who joined the ANCOP, had gotten his education in a madrasa, joined the ANCOP, and he had these crazy ideas about coalition forces and what they should or shouldn't be doing in this country, and shot him. Most of the cases, though, it's not family clans or ethnic groups trying to take control. It seems like it seems like it's working pretty well. So, sure.
Rashid Chatani from TASC. I'm going to take you back to the movie. The thing that impressed me the most in the movie is seeing some of the tangible things that we've done over there, and the roads, the bridges, the dams that we've helped build, and we've got this American thing that we're going to leave behind over there. What I'm more interested in, because of the austerity measures, the policy changes, and some of the countries now, the coalition countries backing off in terms of funding, are we going to leave anything behind that is going to be helpful to the Afghanis in terms of higher education, hospitals, clean water supply, and electricity? Those are the critical things that probably are going to send the strongest message to them in the future to work with us.
Yes, and I will tell you that a lot of our efforts, maybe some of you may have read this article by a Wall Street Journal columnist named Nussbaum, who, I mean, his article was Roads to Nowhere. It just infuriated me because he didn't know what he was talking about. We're spending a lot of money, he said, on roads, and it's really just to keep people working. It hasn't made any impact on Afghanistan, and Helmand Province in particular. As I tried to emphasize here in the movie, is the roads have been critical. Often many coin strategists, smart people have said that the insurgency begins where the roads end. So building those roads are important. But also they changed the dynamics in places like Musikela, Sangin. When we built Highway 611 and paved it all up to Sangin, it changed Sangin. Sangin was the most violent place in Afghanistan when I got there. When that road was completed, it just changed the dynamics completely. And Musikela and Nauzad, which we also had major fights. When we finished Route Red and we connected Musikela and Grushk, the commercial industry just blossomed. People were bringing goods and crops. The price of gas, here's an indicator, the price of gas in Musikela changed and it dropped by 70% just by having a road to the now. When I first got there, it took almost 2 days to get from Camp Leatherneck up to Kajaki or over to Nauzad and Musikela. And now it takes 3 to 4 hours. So it's transformed the environment. The Afghans realize how important those roads are, and they're protecting them. The freedom of movement of local leaders. Governor Mangal never drove anywhere. If the coalition forces couldn't provide a helicopter flight for him to conduct a shore in Sangin, then he didn't go. Today he's driving from Lashkar and he's going up to Kajaki, he's driving to Musikela, he's going down to Khanashin. He's got freedom of movement. That makes a difference. So I think that what we've been able to contribute in regards to infrastructure there is being capitalized on by the Afghans. They're not just taking it and ignoring it. They're taking it and they're absorbing it and making it their own. And once they do that, I mean, it's going to stay in good shape. The only real strong economic driver in Helmand Province is agriculture. When I first got there, General Mills was moving towards Kajaki Dam. And he said, that's the next objective. We're going to seize that area and we're going to seize, clear, hold, and build. But we slowed it down a little bit because we wanted to work on those roads I was just mentioning to you that connected Nauzad, Musikela with Goresh, to get some buy-in by the local people. Well, it worked, because by the time we decided to go into Kajaki, we didn't have to put MICLICs and explode IEDs in villages and towns on up to Kajaki. It was basically, we walked in. I mean, General Craparano, who was the division commander, did a great job of orchestrating the movement to Kajiki, and very little damage, very little infrastructure. But the dam was important. We believe that the dam was critical to giving the government of Afghanistan the primacy that they need, the street cred, I guess, that they could run this dam, that they could get the revenue off of the electricity that's being produced, and that they would decide who gets the irrigation water, not the insurgents. We took that out of the insurgents' hands. The government owns it now, and they're doing a good job of managing it. It's theirs. It's theirs to manage. So I think they put it all together. The government of Afghanistan, Governor Mango, and others are putting it all together and sort of building a pretty good infrastructure that will survive the next couple of years. Now, the truth is that the dam, the price tag on the dam is about $500 million. That's just to put the other turbine in, the third turbine, which will increase the output to 55 megawatts. It's really not a lot. But what's great about U.S. ingenuity is that that dam was built 40 years ago, and it has the capability to increase its megawatts to 150, which will light up Helmand Province, give it what it needs. But the USAID is facing the same cutbacks that we're facing. And so they're cautiously going after projects. They're nipping at it a little bit at a time. So it'll take a while to get that dam up and fully functioning, but it's turned out to be successful. Chris.
John, how big a problem for you in Helmand was the sort of the ungoverned zones in Pakistan and the insurgents drawing support from them? And then how big a problem is it more broadly for the whole country, particularly in the east?
First of all, in Nimroz, which has the Iranian border, we had very little presence there. So it was a highway, drugs out, lethal aid in. And although we tried, and we were able to take down one network that was operating in the Iranian border, there always seemed to be another one that cropped back up. And as you know, historically, the Baluchistan, the Baluchis, they've been doing those same routes for 10,000 years. So it's hard to get after them. So that was a little frustrating. We found some success using special operations forces. Actually, the British special forces took down the network and run in and out of Nimroz, and it helped. What was of greater frustration, obviously, was the Pakistani border. And as you know, Quetta is where all the senior leadership of the Taliban hung their hats. They would come in and out occasionally. As I mentioned earlier, they would sneak in and sneak out because they knew they'd be targeted. But the other area was Baram Char. Baram Char is really the southern city from Helmand, which was a major thoroughfare of drugs and lethal aid back and forth. And I tried a lot to try and work with 12th Corps, which is the Pakistani element that's operates in the south of Helmand Province in Baram Char, trying to get their cooperation. Look at some of these, we had intelligence, we knew where there were caches of large amounts of drugs and caches of weapons, etc. But we could never get 12th Corps to cooperate. General Allen and General Scaparati tried several times to get over to Pakistan and see if they could get 12th Corps to cooperate, even get some talks going between us and them, and it never materialized. There always seemed to be something that slowed the process down. And as you know, while we were there, the Pakistanis closed the borders, they closed the routes. We're still sending stuff over the Northern Distribution Network and not able to push through Pakistan. So it's very frustrating. I know that several congressional visits that came out to Helmand Province, some of them would stop in Pakistan and have discussions, and then they'd come to Helmand Province and they'd be heaping mad. Those Pakistanis, they don't cooperate, they're not doing anything to support us, how can we? And I would just nod my head. Absolutely right. But it wasn't something that I could impact on. I sent a liaison from my staff to ODRP out there, and it really did no good. He didn't have one interaction with 12th Corps. So I've told General Gaganis he needs to still continue to push to see if he can get some support from him. Another thing that's happening, though, with Pakistan is some of you may know, is that the main effort has been in the south for a long time. Rightfully, I think the Southern Pashtun insurgency has been the existential threat to the government of Afghanistan since, 2006 for sure. So, when we went into Afghanistan, we said the Southern insurgency is the main effort. Now the thought process is that we're going to move that main effort from the south to the east, and now the Haqqani network seems to be the real threat. My perspective, and I've mentioned this to my boss, General Scaparrotti, and that we need to be careful and not come out of the south too early and not change the main effort without ensuring that we've got a good handle on the insurgency in the south. I believe General Allen is convinced that the main effort needs to stay in the south through this season until the next planting season in October. And then I suspect that they may change the main effort to the east. As many have said, the Haqqani network's been responsible for the Kabul attacks. They're the ones that have mastermind them, although I can tell you, I think most of them have been failures, and the Afghan security force has done a pretty good job standing up to them. But there is a tendency now to look to the east in that border. So we just need to be careful on it, I think. Not being premature. Sir?
Colonel Jim Deal, I'm retired Marine Works Intelligence Committee. My question gets back to the element of the shift of U.S.-led kinetic to Afghan-led COIN. Are there any COIN functions that you're being hampered with because the IC is providing you with no-form products as opposed to releasable products? And I would have one second question, if we could get to that first,
perhaps. I don't think we had the processes in place to make sure the Afghans get the right information, the right intelligence. But we're improving on it. It's, we just don't have the communications. We don't have a centric system that for the Afghans to sign up to. So it's really mouth to mouth, pretty much. I think that's an area that we're going to have to work on pretty hard. Intelligence is crucial not only to the Afghans succeeding in the COIN environment, it's crucial to us as well over there, and now we're becoming more dependent on the Afghans' fusion of intelligence because they're in the lead than our own. So it is a challenge.
Follow-up, sir, would be any comments that you care to add on human terrain or human geography?
We, as I said earlier when we were talking about being the home team, what that has been able to do is give us a better perspective on the human terrain because we now have an understanding through our interaction with the Afghan local leadership and the population. It's helped dramatically. I think it was a lot harder to understand the human terrain 2 years ago in Afghanistan. And as I mentioned, it's kind of ours to lose. But I will say too, though, going back to your first part of your question, releasable to the Afghans, releasable information to the Afghans, we still haven't worked through all the bugs of working with our coalition partners. It was very frustrating trying to get things releasable to particularly outside the UK, Georgians, and so the intelligence bureaucracy is still somewhat of a challenge. We're getting better. I also had to convince my own commanders that they could they need to rely on Centrics. If you wanted more information fused better with other allies involved, you got to use Centrics. But it took some work to get them convinced. I'll tell you what convinced them on moving to Centrics was what we've done is we knew that we were going to reduce our human eyeball on the battlefield by going from 19,000 to 6,000. But we realized that we're still going to have to maintain surveillance on the battlefield in the province. So we built a network. Some of the real smart guys in the MEF built a network with full motion video, integrating PGSS, GBOS, and then the British system, which is similar to our PGSS, so that we got full motion video throughout. But the only way they can see it is through Centrics. So we got them to sort of sign up to it, and I think it's made a difference. Sir.
Sir, good afternoon. Major Kurt Sanger from Marine Corps University. Just wondering, between Koran burning off the top of the head, urination video on YouTube, I believe Staff Sergeant Bales, that happened right before you left, sir? And if any of those affected your ability to operate, and more specifically, if it affected relationships that had developed between A&A, A&P, and your leaders, as well as the civilians you were interacting with?
You never know what the long-term effect will be, but on the short-term basis, the Koran burning, for example, as many of you may know the story, but the Koran was being used by the detainees. They were writing messages in it, and you know, the guards that took that action had the right intent, because the Koran had already been desecrated because they'd written it, but obviously went about it the wrong way. What I found, it was a true indicator of some of the success that we've had in Helmand Province, was that Governor Mango immediately took action. And he brought his Ulama Council together, and he said, here's what happened, told them, said this was not done on purpose, this was an accident. This occurred by two young soldiers. And then he sent the Ulama Council out throughout the province to discuss exactly what happened with the public. We didn't have a single incident in Helmand Province or Nimrod's Province, because the leadership took action, and they understood it, and they took action. The video, again, very little backlash. Obviously an embarrassment for everybody, but it didn't create the kind of backlash that we thought it potentially could. So I think it just says a lot for the relationship that has been built between the service members who have done tens of thousands of good, positive things that have been remembered and put into the memory bank of the Afghans, and they look at that and they go, this was one isolated incident. Look at all the other good things they've done. So, so the answer to your question is, I did not see a backlash on those events. Doesn't mean that we can't, we shouldn't address it, and we are. But I think it's a good sign of progress that didn't turn bad. Is that it? Okay. Sure.
General, there's been a big push to try to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels and water. The EEO office has pumped some stuff into your area that's sort of concern. Impact, has that been a good thing for your guys? How would you assess that effort?
It's great. In fact, we were able to convince the Afghans to use solar power. And many of their OCCDs, operational coordination centers at the district level, have solar panels on their roofs now that kind of provide the energy to keep their equipment running. We need to go further with energy efficient techniques and technology. We built a fob that was dependent upon solar energy, etc., but we need to expand it. The water is, I wish that we could have gotten to the point where we were less dependent on bottled water. One of our problems was that we could produce bulk clean water to drink, but we couldn't find a way to keep it cool. It used to be, I remember years ago, where we had water bowls that were like chillers, but they're gone. They're not in the inventory anymore. And so providing bulk water and having a way of chilling it will make a huge difference. The guys will drink it. I'll tell you what was a little bit of a challenge was that the Afghans also were using some of that water that we were providing for them out of bottles. And it was getting difficult for us to convince them as they took over some of these fobs that, they'd have to use the well water. So, again, we created a problem for ourselves, and now we have to wean them off. But yeah, we're definitely, we want to reduce the number of sorties that carry water. I think maybe you've seen the attack on MajGen where, part of the helicopter assault was guys carrying cases of bottled water. And, we want to try and change that dynamic.
I'm sure we could have one more question.
Okay.
Sir, Lieutenant Sider from Office of Naval Research. In contrast to the ANA and A&P conventional sort of a structure for security, I believe there's a relatively new program in RC North, maybe RC East, concerning arming local militias, basically. Was that approach considered in RC Southwest?
Saying arming local militias, I think, is really contrary to anything that we want to do. We do not want to arm local militias. We have been accused of arming local militias by developing the Afghan local police, which is an initiative that is very important in RC South, is building the Afghan local police. This goes back to those Pashtuns who really don't want to leave home. They want to stay in their district. They want to operate there. We find a legitimate leader. He brings together his team. Some call it in Afghanistan, call it arbakais, local militias. That could generate a problem, and we're not in the business of arming those militias. We are in the business of supporting the Afghan local police for a short period of time, so that they establish some stability and credibility, and then those who do a good job and want to stay in security business get absorbed into the police and work in that local area. But I would not support arming any local militias, just because once you start doing that, you take in size and you're going to have problems. It's got to be legitimate security, and just like we have neighborhood watch, we have an Afghan local police. And the reason why MajGen turned so quickly was because of the success of the ALP program. But now we're transitioning. We want to find those ALP, either give them vocational training, put them in motorcycle mechanic class, or bring them into the police force. We don't want to keep those local militia, those local police out there.
Sir, well, thank you very much.
Yeah. What happens now? Aren't you going to mingle around?
Yes, sir, we're going to mingle with this.
What time do you have to leave, John?
So I'm done.
No, I mean, you have to get out of here?
No, sir, this is the last thing.
Okay, well, I want to, I'll just thank you right now for your presentation. What John didn't say, because he's really a modest guy, but what he didn't say amongst many things today is that many of the concepts and many of the ideas, and the building of the dam, and all of that kind of thing, he was behind all of that, and he didn't exactly have an easy time doing that. There were many in higher leadership positions, military and civilian, both in the Afghan government and on our own side and in the coalition, who wanted to press east, to go forward, to do some other things, to get away from the counterinsurgency techniques and so on that were being so successful, and get on with doing other counter-terrorist techniques, et cetera, et cetera. And so he hung tough because he was right. And his his Marines and sailors and his allies and friends hung tough because they knew he was right. And so I want to thank you for your powerful leadership there. Actually, you got paid a great compliment a week ago Saturday. We had a strategic seminar here, and the great Lord General Zinni was presiding over your thing. And I said, what do you think of John Toolan? And Zinni said, he's great. He said, he's really, really done a wonderful job, and he ticked off a number of things, a number of reasons why he was so proud of you and all your people. At which time I said, well, I guess then as far as I'm concerned, you were adequate. And that's a pretty high compliment to me. As some of my friends know, when that's the same thing as getting Legion of Merit in the Air Force. So, John, thank you very much, and I'm proud of you.
Hope you can stay and formally talk to the general and the staff. We have some sodas and beer over there. Please help yourself. And again, thank you very much for coming.